welcome everybody to our virtual meetup with the guest violinist, Amelia. And I have really enjoyed her questions that she answered for us on the Vibrant Violin blog. And I just wanted to talk to her a little bit more and ask her to expound on a few things that were that I found interesting in her blog post. So, Amelia, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us just a little bit about really briefly, your violin background and stuff, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, I'm Amelia LaVanchy and hailing from Lynchburg, Virginia area, or Central Virginia. So yeah, music has been a part of my life since 5, 6 years old, and one of 8 siblings. So all the girls played music, and all the guys did more sports and martial arts. So played piano from a young age, but always loved the violin. Something about the soulfulness of it and the portability. And I felt like the piano was a little more geared towards someone that was a little more introverted, and I couldn't handle the solo aspect of it as much. So I really wanted to play violin from a young age and knew I would. So after maybe 5, 6 years of playing piano, I asked my parents if I could take violin. So I saved up some money, and they got me into lessons, drove me an hour every week to take lessons, and kind of took off from there. I found it personally really difficult to keep up with 2 instruments and do well at both, just because I wanted to focus. I think my love was more towards violin. I always knew that. So I tried to do both for a couple of years, and I just switched over, and I fell in love with it and switched teachers several times and started college in violin performance. And I've since worked at private schools and taught privately and worked at orchestras and played for weddings and gigs. And I love it. I love all the different aspects. So violin's just amazing. And you can take it anywhere. It's so small. But I love strings. I just love listening to strings and chamber orchestras, and it just speaks to my soul. So
yeah. That's great. And so in your post, you had said that basically anybody can learn at any age, and that it's not dependent. Learning to play violin isn't really dependent on how old you are or anything like that, but rather your desire to accomplish small goals. And
for sure. So, human motivation and behavior. I did a lot of psychology in college, and I love that aspect. Even learning about myself and figuring out what motivates me, and trying to dig deeper into that, because I find there's a lot of hang-ups in my own life. Like, why can't I get past this? Why am I not motivated now? Or how does that ebb and flow? And then how do we get past that, right? Just kind of figuring out what it is that I need to get past that, and then catering that towards individuals. Because I meet people all throughout life, and they're like, oh man, I really wish I had stuck with violin. Like, please don't stop playing. And I was like, I don't plan to stop playing. Like, why do people assume that just as an adult, like, I'm going to stop playing, right? It's something you do as a kid or something you do in grade school. And I'm like, no, like, we got to change our attitude about it, because people assume that once you start real life, you cut out the things you love or that you always wanted to learn. And I'm like, no, this is the time to, like, carve out that little piece for yourself that you can find that motivation for. And I love it when adult students come to me and be like, I've wanted to play this for years, or I played it in grade school. I want something in me, and I resonate with that because I don't want them to lose that. And so many people have told me, like, don't lose it. And I'm like, I'm not going to, because this is the discipline and area of my life that I'm committed to. I want to stay focused on. And not everybody has the opportunity to do that. Or, there's life happens, but some of them I feel like are self-imposed excuses. Mm-hmm. You have kids and your priorities change, but there can still be a time for you, and there can still be a time for your passions and interests, and your kids need to see that too, that's something I'm really passionate about, is working with adult students too that come back after years of either not doing it or picking it up for the first time. So just really sitting down and be like, okay, what have you always wanted to play? Like, maybe someone's wanted to play fiddle music, or maybe someone's wanted to play like an old hymn that they heard their grandmother play on the piano. Like, what is it that in the back of your mind and your heart, like, if you could do something, like, this is what it would be. So those are the conversations I like to have with potential students or current students. And then from there, be like, okay, where are we now? And then how do we get there? And what are the small measurable goals that we can take to get from point A to point B? So that's something I love working with students.
And that's super good, and it helps you to move through faster and actually notice that you're getting closer to your goals and being able to do what you wanted to do. So I really like that.
Yeah, because if you don't know where a student is, like where they want to go, you just kind of feel like you're in the like sand a little bit and just treading wheels. And then 2 years have gone by and be like, what are you actually working towards? You know. But if you can define that at the beginning, I know that's helped me when teachers are like, all right, here's where we're going. This is how we break it down, and then this is something we can work on together. So yeah.
Yeah, and also I think it's important too for them to know what they actually want to do. I mean, sure, you want to play violin, but there's, 10 or more different ways to play violin. And so what kind of music do you want to do? So that, and it's important for a teacher to have that conversation with the student, because if I'm a mostly classical teacher and I get a student that's more interested in fiddle, if we don't have that conversation, I'm just going to default to taking them the classical route, and they're going to lose interest. So
Suzuki only, right? And that's something I'm passionate about, because I don't like being put into a box. So I don't want to put my students in a box.
Right.
Because I've had the teachers that have been like, no, I'm only classical. Like, you're ruining your bow grip and your bow arm by playing fiddle music. But at the end of the day, it's like, but I want to play fiddle music, right? And can I do both? And can I do both well and successfully? And I play with, I played it with chamber orchestras, but I also play with folk groups, and I love it. And like, I don't know, I just feel like as a teacher, what is it that you're trying to help that student? Like, is it your own goals, or are you trying to match the student's goals? And I think you have to, as a teacher, you have to have that conversation with yourself and be like, is this more about me and what's fulfilling for me? Or is my goal to empower my student? So yeah, I've loved the fact that I've been able to play in so many different avenues, and I think it's helped me meet more students' like individual needs and goals and what they want from their musical career, their life,
and that's why that's part of the reason that I've maybe not referred to myself online as a teacher as much, and more as a coach, because that's exactly what a coach does. That's a coach's role, is to get behind what you're trying to do and help you get there. So, and then
that's so much.
I'm really curious. I mean, I've known you for a while and read all your posts and everything, and we don't know what your college degree is, and I was a little bit surprised that you started in music and didn't finish in music. So 2 things on that. I want to know, what did you major in, and how is that complementing you as a musician? And then I also want to hear you talk about what was it about the requirements in the performance degree that kind of were turning you away from music? Because I've heard that many times, and I think it's important to talk about.
That was just a me story, so that's good to hear. Right. Well, actually, no. When I was in school, I kept hearing students just being burned out. Like, they're filling their blocks. They're 4 hours of music. They're 2 hours of music. Whatever the requirement was, but they were doing it just to check the box. I'm like, but that's not how. Like, I understand that there's the discipline you're creating and all that, and you need that. But at the end of the day, if you spend all that money and time and 4 years of a class, of a degree, and then you get out and you don't want to play, like, I guess I had seen that in reverse order, and I was like, I don't want that life. And the school I went to was great, but it did not have a great string performance program. It was geared more towards education, like a music ed degree, and I didn't want to spend a semester learning all these different instruments because I knew I just wanted to play a violin. But their performance degree was very limited, and part of the only reason I started it was because I got my teacher as adjunct faculty at the college, so that made it a little more attractive to me, because it'd be like, okay, at least I can still work with this professor, my teacher, and that made it a little more doable. But it just became a battle, like working with the requirements and their hours. And I worked all through college, and I had several different jobs, and I had various interests, and it was just like, no. They would tell me that you're not going to get a job in a music related field if you don't get this music degree. And I was just like, why would you tell me that? Like, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial minded family, and it's all about diversifying income. Like, don't let person's limitations tell you what you can and can't do. Like, use that as a means to challenge yourself and prove them wrong. Maybe that's the defiant side of me. I'm like, I'll show you. No. But I mean, life is more about collaboration. It's more about who you know. And yes, the skills to go with it, but we're creating the personal skills and the just the networking. And I had seen that in real life prior to that because I'd worked since I was 14 and had several jobs. And I was like, it's not about what just always looks good on paper. You know, it's not always about the resume. And I feel like in the academic field, you kind of get stuck up on that. Like, what looks good on paper? But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm more of a creative. I'm more of an artist. So I'm like, what feeds your soul? What inspires you? Like, what makes you want to give back? So yeah, all that to say, I ended up going online so I could continue working, and I started teaching. And I ended up doing multidisciplinary studies. So I kind of made my own degree. And so I had 3 concentrations. One was music, because I didn't want to lose all that time and energy that I put into a year and a half of the music degree. And then I did business and psychology. And they all are things I use now. And I have my own business, and I love psych, and I did my master's in psychology too. But yeah, it all plays together. And like I said, human motivation and what kind of keeps us kind of goal oriented and also keeps us motivated to work towards long-term goals, I think is important. So yeah, I made my own degree, went online, and that way I could still take lessons and still play with gigs, and got hired as adjunct faculty because of who I knew, because of my teacher, not because of the degree. It had nothing to do with what looked good on paper. so yeah, I was just, don't let it limit you. If you think, obviously different schools have different programs. If you're looking for a specific field and you're willing to go to that place, you can, there are some adaptability within that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, what do you want to do? I didn't have a desire to teach in a public school. That wasn't the way I was, raised. And I was privileged to teach in a private school for a while, but I love teaching one-on-one and meeting with the individual and working with their specific needs and goals. And yeah, that's been more fulfilling to me because you're in a classroom setting. You can only go as fast as the slowest student. And not that that's a bad thing. It's just a very different experience. And you have to give more time and energy to those people that are behind and work a little slower. But on the one-on-one teaching and coaching, and you know this because you're a coach, but yeah, you can match their speed. And I'm a slower learner, so I take 3 or 4 times to learn something. I need it drilled into me. And I need that freedom to do that with a student, So anyway, yeah, 3 concentrations, went online, made my own degree, and I've never not had a music job since then. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, proven wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, I like to talk about that stuff too because I think college is somewhat losing its value in a way, in that the jobs that we have now do not even require a college degree a lot of times. And it's interesting what you had to say about it because I actually was a music ed major because I wanted to teach. But I did not want. Well, initially I thought I did want to be an orchestra teacher, but as I started getting closer to when I would have to go out and actually teach in the schools with, I don't remember what you call that, but it was time. It was going to be my next year. I would start going to the classrooms at the schools and helping out. So some of the students that were ahead of me were already doing that, and they would come back with their stories, and I was just like, "This is not for me." This is being an orchestra teacher.
And some people are wired that way, and that's beautiful. But I think what's important for people like you and I and everybody is to figure out what inspires you. Like, what feed, like, at the end of the day, are you doing it just for the paycheck? Like, that's not worth it, right? We want to do it because we're helping an individual and we're helping them learn their passions and interests, and we feel like we're making a difference, right? I mean, ultimately, as humans, that's what we want to feel like we're giving back in an impactful way. So yeah, definitely agree.
And I mean, I actually didn't finish my degree, and it wasn't even because of that. It was because in order to finish my degree, there was all these diversified classes that I had to take to have a well-rounded education, and it so that I couldn't practice. And I actually left school with the thought, I came here to get really good at violin, and now I don't have time to practice. And I
Mm,
was making better progress when I could practice with all of my time instead of being tied with all these interests, all these subjects that I'm not even interested in and don't
right.
really have to do with music. So,
I
anyways,
think I kind of share a similar experience that way. Then I actually realized that you left the program. So good for you. You're doing what you love on the road, and you're being an entrepreneur at it, and you're
yeah.
you're, you're crafting your own trade, and you're making it work for your life, and that's what's beautiful.
And that's what is going to be fulfilling for anybody, I think, is to find out what is really meaningful for you as a person and that you can contribute to others. And that's where you're going to find um,
Right.
fulfillment, I guess. So, all right, let's go ahead and kind of wrap up with you sharing three of your favorite tips or tools, either as a music teacher or as a violinist. What
Okay.
three things?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was thinking about this. I was like, oh, it's hard to narrow it down just to 3 bullet points. But something that I found really helpful for myself and for students is that just to create a practice chart and a practice log because people need accountability. I need accountability. I need to see visual progress of what's happening week by week so I can see the direct results in my own practice time. And I think if you have no record of it and you come back and be like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Well, did you practice this week? Well, no. Right. So there's that kind of like, okay, well, let's change something. But I found that when I write it down and when students write it down, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that really did add up. That made a difference overall in the course of the whole week. And I came back feeling much more confident and well prepared, and now you have like something to compare it to on paper. And so anyway, that's helped for me because I need the accountability. Students need that accountability, and it gives them something to check off and feel successful, and then they can start to feel that confidence growing. So yeah, I would say how many times a week, and then like how much time within that time block. So that's something that I would just say keep a record of it so you can see your progress, and so you can kind of just see how far you go with it, from there.
For sure. Super valuable.
Yeah. And then, yeah. So one thing I was thinking about as a second thing was, okay, so say you have your hour practice time, right? Your block. So in the like your beginning time, 15, 20, you warm up with scales and etudes and all that. And then you can go into your repertoire, whether that's your orchestra or your concertos, your private work. But then something I was thinking about that's fun and helpful for me because I need like rewards and motivation because I'm, you got to figure out people are like internally motivated or externally, like what gets them fired up, right? So for me is carve like 10, 12 minutes at the end of your practice hour or, more time if you have more time, but have that be your fun time, like to practice whatever you want and get off what the teacher has, mapped out for you, whether it's fiddle music or I love playing by ear. So I'll put on either pop music or worship music and just play along with it. And that to me is like soul time and creative time that gives back and kind of gives a little energy into the mundane, like practicing. So carve a little bit of time, like whether you have your, teacher's permission or not, it doesn't matter. Like just make time to like just to do something fun and use that as a reward at the end of your practice time. And it can still be log time, right? It's still log time practicing. So that's something I find really valuable. And then the third thing I was thinking about was like as a teacher, like stay in lessons yourself. Like that to me has been really, really valuable because it gives me accountability and if I have hard repertoire and music to go back to, like someone's working with me and progressing and investing in my creative process and journey, and then I have more to give back to my students. So we might not, as teachers, we might not have time to take weekly lessons, right? But we can do a month, like once a month or every other week or every other month, right? And just put some of that money that we're making back into ourselves, and it adds value to who we are, as an artist and as a teacher. And so, yeah, that's been valuable to me. A lot of people are like, "You're still taking lessons?" I'm like, "Yes." Like, why wouldn't I? Like that to me is really important as a teacher because I'm giving out so much. I need to be poured into and have that value out to me, and it adds more value to my students because I can turn around and share the same things I learned. So those are three things I thought of.
Yeah, and I really love that last one because it's exactly it. If you are always just pouring out, which as teachers, we constantly pour out, and it
Mhm.
can be very exhausting. Um, Usually is, rather. And
Mhm.
if we're not being poured into and filled back up with things to give, and I mean,
Mhm.
even just fresh ideas. And there's a multitude of ways to go about pouring into yourself as a teacher, I think. Um, with, you can go to a conference, you can go to a workshop, you can just watch somebody else teach, honestly, and you're
Mhm.
gonna be getting kind of that fuel that you need. But yeah, definitely, if you're able, I definitely think lessons are super important for sure.
Yeah, and go to concerts and sit in the audience and listen and be a part of that side of things instead of always playing, where it's like your only association with concerts is like you being up there, you getting a paycheck, you doing the work at home, right? But just to like to be able to have that creative net and that artistic journey of someone else and their joy, like kind of infused on you from a distance. I don't know. It's just
Right.
nice to be on the receiving end sometimes too.
Yeah, no, that was great. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for taking time for this, and I love the things and the thoughts that you shared. Um, so, and I'll get you into the Facebook group so that if anybody comments watching the replay with any questions or anything, you can be there to answer.
Okay.
Okay, Titus, do you have a question?
Yeah. I was going to ask you it on my lesson. Uh, there's this sticker on my violin, like in that hole. I can see a sticker in my violin. Is that supposed to be there?
Yes. Does it have words on it?
What?
It has words on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that should tell you who made your violin and like what year, how old your violin is, and things
Oh,
like and where it was made.
okay.
So you can take a look inside there and probably learn some stuff about your violin.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So if let's see, I don't the Titus is the only one that made it live, so I think that's all the questions we had. So,
Good. I
all
can
right.
pop over to the Facebook group anytime and answer questions too. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me join you. This is so fun.
Yeah, and thanks for doing it. All right. Talk to you later.
Again. All right, bye.